would say the thing, you didn't ask this question, but I'd say the thing that I'm most pleased about, I don't know if proud of is the right term, but I'm most proud of this community and the way they show up for each other. It's powerful.
So to what reason do you attribute stewarding so many black belts, so many high-level instructors? It's kind of unheard of across worldwide to have so many at one school.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think obviously those people have to be committed, right, to the process. And if I see someone that's committed to the process, I have this overwhelming desire to support them. And I think when you create that kind of field where someone's putting a lot of energy in and you're putting a lot of energy in, good things happen. I've been blessed and fortunate, and I'm grateful for the types of people that have walked through the door over the last 20 years. And I used to say this, and it's probably still true, but I used to say Krav Maga Houston is a home for stray dogs, right? Because the kinds of people that come here are so diverse. And oftentimes, no matter where they come from, they feel like they don't fit in that place. But here, there's a like-mindedness where everyone's the same. And when you have that kind of level playing field, and you have people who show up and desire what you have, and you desire to give them what you have, or to make that available so they can take it, good things happen. And I'm really proud of that.
So you're already touching on this a little bit, so I'm going to just go ahead and lead into this one.
Okay.
How has training the next generation of Krav Maga instructors impacted you personally?
That's a great question. When you ask the question, I feel the answer, but I know I need to tell you with words, right? I think when I look at how the generations of instructors have developed, there's two things. The first thing that comes to mind is this. I'm really proud of those people. And it sounds weird because many of them are my contemporaries in terms of age and profession, right? I feel like they're Krav dad, you know what I mean? I feel like they're my Krav kids. And I've watched them come up from the first time they walked in class, and now they're second, third degree black belts, and they're leading classes, and they're not only leading classes, but they're leading people, and they're forces for good and confidence, and they're advocates in this community, and it's amazing. It's amazing is probably the wrong word. It's profound. So I don't know that I can put words to that, but I feel it.
This is actually a pretty interesting question. It seems as though Krav Maga Houston is run as a Christian business. Can you explain how your faith influences your approach to both being a mentor for instructors, leading a class, and making business decisions?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm a Christian, and I came to that in lots of different ways. But I feel like if you're a Christian, whoever you are, you can't separate your work life from your faith life or your family life, because your quality of being and the way you show up, if you're truly living in response to grace, has to be the same. And one of the powerful ways that I landed on advocacy as an instructor was living in response to grace. And I think if you, meaning me, but if the people watching this, all seven of them, if they consider who they are and who they want to be, one of the hallmarks of that is, do you show up the same way no matter where you are? And that's living authentically and living with integrity. So I want to be clear that one of my beliefs as a Christian is that everyone should have access to this. So I don't care who you are or where you come from. If you show up here and you want this information and you conduct yourself in a way that's consistent with that, we want you here. You don't have to be a Christian, but understand that I'm going to treat you in a way that is grace-filled, in a way that is full of integrity and authenticity, that I'm going to have a level of concern and sort of a love for you in a way that I hope expresses itself in the way I teach. I think I had a powerful experience years ago that we won't go into right now, but I was talking to some people about it because it really shifted the way that I saw the world. And the result was that I felt like I was too cynical and I was too indifferent. And it was major. It was a major shift for me. And one of the things that one of my mentors years ago asked me was, well, if you always say that you're a man for the people, but not of the people, I said, but I really want good things for people, but they're dirty, unreliable, beings. So I really want this for you, but don't stand next to me, right? That shifted for me dramatically. And someone asked me, well, how does that work? And I said, well, let's say I'm in class, and let's say someone's being a little agitating, and they're not showing up the way they should, and they're sucking the oxygen out of the room. One of the things I think about is them sitting in front of me, sort of crying and saying, will you please help me, right? So it helps me to recenter and think, this person's acting this way for a reason, and I need to figure out what it is. I need to go speak to them. We need to have a shared perspective. And they need to show up in a way that they understand they're being supported. And if they can't do that, they can't be here. But it's my job to create that first step. So the way I run the business is I value loyalty over anything else. I try to give people a lot of grace. I try to work with people. And I try to focus on the things they're doing well. And I try to support them and challenge them in the things that they aren't doing well. But we don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. I really try to give a lot of grace, a lot of chances for people to be able to be in the world and in this business and in their function the best version of themselves. And I hope that's what people feel.
And so even we have a slightly similar question in terms of the way you're approaching class and observations, like you said earlier, or recommendations you make outside of just the physical elements of training, but the emotional, the intellectual, intuitive ways that you approach training as a student. Do you have any specific recommendations or percentages, weights of how people should maybe address that when they go into the classroom?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think we all have to recognize, so there's a famous book, right? It's called The Book of Five Rings. Right? It's written by a renowned swordsman back in feudal Japan. And it's something that's often cited by people as sort of one of the hallmark reads as martial artists begin to understand different perspectives, right? Some of the book is looking at martial arts from a microscope. Some of it's looking at it from a telescope because the perspectives are different. In that way, I ask people to look at this. If the five rings were you, what would those look like, right? So the rings would be your physical body, your mental capacity, your emotional capacity, your intuition, and your spirit. Those aren't particularly new or novel. Lots of people talk in those ways. But if we forget that we are this whole person and we only focus ourselves on the physical or the mental, we're not going to get very far before we hit a wall. And oftentimes, the most powerful way to work in a self-defense system, or Krav Maga, is to look outside those things. Obviously, you want to optimize where you can, but if you're not working on your emotional resilience, if you're not also working on your mental toughness, if you're not working on your intuition, which in short means knowing without knowing how you know, if you're not training your spirit, your fighting spirit, you're making a mistake. And so I think what I would say to people is this: shore up your weaknesses, explore things that are uncomfortable for you, and become a more integrated and powerful force to be able to defend those things that are most sacred to you. That's the way I've approached it. I don't think there's a number or a percentage. Just being aware that this needs to be done, I think, is strong.
And the final question, this was probably the most frequent question that was asked,
Okay.
is what do you want to see happen with Krav Maga Houston in the next 20 years?
Wow.
So that's a lot.
Yeah. What's your 25-year plan? That's a great question. So I think, we've been doing this I've been involved with Krav Maga for really 21 years, but teaching for 20 years. I think if I was to look at what I would like to happen with Krav Maga Houston over the next 20 years, some of it is softer in the way that it's not a metric-oriented concept. It's really more about asking how much, what kind of effect can we have at what level, across what type of geography, or across what group of people. How can we support more people in more places? How can we take what we have here and multiply that? That's one of the things. And it's really, even though it sounds quantitative, it's more qualitative in my mind. The second one is, I think that there is a need for a national footprint where Krav Maga is shepherded through a central facility is the wrong word. The thought leaders are centralized around the way that we teach Krav Maga, or the methods around which we teach Krav Maga, whether that be through the belt system or through another system, through motor skills. And I think we need, as Krav Maga Houston and as a larger community, we need a voice to be able to point out to people that this is the way we're doing things and this is why. The Krav Maga is so flexible because it's principle-based. So as long as you're meeting the principles, you're doing Krav Maga. But there are so many people out there that are doing Krav Maga, and they're doing it in a way that's frankly unsafe. And they're in it for a profit motive, and it's disturbing to me. So Krav Maga Houston, next 20 years, I'd like to see what we do here. I'd like to just see it proliferate in a way that has an impact to communities across the U.S. or, I don't know, across the world, if we're thinking big. And I'd like to see opportunities for people. I think that's one of the things we've been doing in the last several years, is creating opportunities for people who really are engaged and who've earned their way. That's something I'm going to continue to think about. One of the things I like to say is invest in multiple futures, and then when the future shows up, you have a foothold there. So we're going to be doing lots of things, and are doing lots of things, to ensure that no matter what the future looks like outside the school has a relevant place there. Most of all, I hope, over the next 20 years, we continue to impact people, we continue to support and challenge people in a way that makes bigger, better lives for people. That's my highest and best hope.